Good evening. Good evening from Tampere in Switzerland, where I'm over here to give a talk about science and Brexit tomorrow. But just wanted to chime in quickly on this defeat of the government in the House of Lords. It's big news. Here is why. I put in the description this the second big nail in the coffin of Brexit. The first one is, of course, the Article 7 amendment, meaning that we have a meaningful vote on the deal coming up this autumn. That means that the Parliament actually has the ability to reject Brexit as it comes through. This one just now is really important because it was a thumping defeat for the government in the Lords. 348 votes to 225, with 24 Conservative peers rebelling on essentially the issue of the customs union. The nature of the amendment, you don't need to bother about the details. Basically, it was about whether we stay in a customs union with the EU or not. And then this is now going to go back to the House of Commons, where it's expected to go through probably about next month after the local elections, but it's looking like it could get defeated there in the Commons as well. That the government's notion of coming out of our customs union with the EU, because you've got the Labour Party who've said that they're for staying in a customs union. All the opposition parties want that as well, and it looks like there's enough Conservative Rebels MPs with this trend set now by the Lords to actually reject the government on this. And this is big because one of the fantasies about Brexit is that if we just come out of the customs union, then we can do all these lucrative free trade deals around the world. And that is a fantasy that still persists in a lot of Brexiteer mythology, even though the Treasury's own analysis has shown that that is not the case. It is a loss-making exercise by all solid analyses, the government's own included. So this is why fiscally responsible Conservatives are starting to say, no, we're not going there, because they know that should we come out of the customs union, firstly, that means added paperwork thrown on 180,000 businesses across the UK, predominantly small and medium-sized businesses, to costs of billions. So that's costs of thousands or tens of thousands per business on average across the UK. All of that paperwork that people aren't used to. Then there's blockages at our ports. The whole structure that we have with the Channel Tunnel and the ferries across are built on no customs. Suddenly you'd have to have capacity to do that. It's not something you can ignore. This is something we have to do by international treaties under WTO and all that kind of stuff. So you've got to build the infrastructure. Then, of course, there's the issue of Ireland as well, which is absolutely threatening the peace there. Any infrastructure is going to be symbolic not only of partition but also of drift between the communities. And then, what's this all for? Something that's a loss-making exercise. So this first defeat of the government in the House of Lords on this issue of the customs union sets it up then to hold solid and do the same thing in the Commons. As Keir Starmer just tweeted out, careful work is now paying off. So it's very clear where he stands, and lots of people are chiming in on the significance of this. This is not the be-all and the end-all, but it's a very important bellwether as to where this is all going. Hopefully responsibility is in and rash fantasy is out, and this is, like I said, the second big nail in the coffin, the first one being that we actually have a meaningful vote on whatever Theresa May decides to bring back, where Labour is fully prepared, according to Keir Starmer, to reject the deal. And then the second big nail in the coffin here is rejecting all this trade deal fantasy. Essentially, with the EU, we've got the majority of our trade with the EU or with the rest of the world covered by deals, with more deals coming through. We're approaching global saturation with a big, strong force. Why on earth will we come out of this framework, which is not just European and global, and start from scratch again? It does not make economic sense, and it also punishes so many businesses in our country. So this fantasy needs to be knocked off. It was a fantasy from the start, and it looks as though we're on the right course to actually start killing off on a parliamentary level as well as a Lords level, a lot of these damaging fantasies that are being peddled. And what we all need to do now is we all need to be pitching in with writing to our MPs, writing to the local press. This customs union issue is absolutely vital to the well-being of this country, that we keep our country solid, that we keep our businesses and people first, and don't go dancing off after the unicorns as some of these hard Brexiteers would have us do. So this is good stuff, people, and now we all need to be coming in and backing that up. Right, good.